Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rob's Movie Reviews. I'd just once again like to take a moment to remind you that if you enjoy what you're seeing and like this channel, by all means hit the like button and subscribe. Now, this week's video, uh, this was a suggestion given to me by my children. It's one of their favorite movies. It's not one that I probably would have chose to do a review on, but they've asked me, so I'm going to do it. It is a movie I enjoy very much. It's a very quirky comedy that came out in 1989, and it stars Weird Al Yankovic, along with veteran actor Kevin McCarthy, Michael Richards in his pre-Seinfeld days, Victoria Jackson, best known for being on Saturday Night Live, Fran Drescher when she was just getting her career up and going. And it's, like I said, a very quirky comedy. Weird Al is definitely an acquired taste. You either like him or you don't. If you don't like his music, don't even bother watching this movie, because I promise you won't like it. He's just very bizarre, very over the top with his comedy. However, if you do like Weird Al's music and you want to give it a go, by all means do so. The name of the film is UHF. Now, like I said, this was released back in 1989 when Al was really at the height of his music popularity. His parody music was really all the rage at the time. He was very popular. The movie is basically, it's a story about a couple of losers, George Newman and his friend Bob, who basically wander aimlessly from job to job. They can't hold down a job. George is always daydreaming, and it always gets him in trouble at work. And unfortunately, his buddy Bob, who is loyal to a fault to George, usually ends up getting the axe right along with him. George's girlfriend, Terry, played by Victoria Jackson, is beginning to get frustrated with him. He senses that she may be planning on breaking up with him if he can't get his life together and start acting like an adult. Then the timing works out perfect, because he has an uncle, Harvey Belchick, who loves to gamble, and in a poker game one night, his uncle Harvey wins the deed to a small UHF channel, channel 62, out on the edge of town. And he doesn't really want the station. He's going to try to dump it, find somebody to buy it cheap. But his wife convinces him to keep it and to make George the station manager. George, of course, accepts the job, not knowing anything about what it takes to run a television station. Of course, he brings Bob with him. They get there. It's a disaster. They try making up some original shows that just are horrible. George does Uncle Nutsy's Clubhouse, and the kids, even the kids in the studio audience, are bored out of their minds. So he just gets frustrated and storms out one day, right in the middle of the show. And the janitor, who's played by Michael Richards, his name is Stanley Spitowski, and George just basically says, "Hey, Stanley, you want your own TV show? You're on." And so Stanley wanders out onto the stage. George and Bob leave the studio. George is trying to get Bob is trying to get George to come back. They're sitting in a bar having a drink. When the bartender turns the TV up, he goes, "Look, everybody, it's coming back on." And everybody in the bar just crowds around real quick. Come find out they're watching Stanley Spitowski. He's an instant hit. People love him. He's hilarious. George and Bob realize that they've got something here. They rush back to the station. The secretary's been taking phone calls ever since they left. Their secretary, by the way, played by Fran Drescher. And the next thing you know, Stanley Spitowski's the biggest thing in town. And the money's coming in from the sponsors, so they're able to upgrade, get some better programming. And before you know it, they're the #1 TV station in town. This draws attention from the network affiliate, Channel 8, run by R.J. Fletcher, a mean, crude, evil man, played by Kevin McCarthy. And he immediately tries to figure out a way he can get Channel 62 shut down. Well, George's Uncle Harvey ends up amassing about $100,000 in debt with his bookie. And he gets a phone call telling him he's got till the coming weekend to come up with the money or bad things are going to happen. And of course, as soon as he gets off the phone with his bookie, the phone rings and it's R.J. Fletcher. Well, George finds out that his uncle's selling the station to Fletcher, who has no intention of keeping it up and running. He's just going to tear it down and eliminate his competition. George manages to talk his uncle into giving him till that weekend to his uncle's deadline with the bookie, called Big Louie, by the way. If George can come up with the $100,000 by that coming Saturday, then his uncle will sell the station to him instead of to R.J. Fletcher. And it's a hilarious sequence of events that unfold after this. They have a big telethon trying to raise the money. R.J. Fletcher kidnaps Stanley Spitowski to get him off the air so people will quit watching. It's a zany rescue mission where George goes and finds Stanley, gets him back there, and just right at the stroke of midnight, they manage to get hit that $100,000 mark, and it's a big happy ending for everybody. The town now owns the channel because they've been selling shares of stock for $10 a piece in the station. So now that the station's owned by the whole town, of course, they want George to stay on as the station manager. R.J. Fletcher ends up losing his broadcast license because the guy from the FCC was there and heard and saw a lot of the things that R.J. was saying to the crowd that was there supporting George. And it's hilarious. And it's your typical, happy ending for everybody. The humor in this movie is way over the top. It's extremely zany. There's a thin line that everybody has between what's hilarious and what's stupid, and this movie really pushes right up to that line. I believe it probably goes way past it for a lot of people. This movie didn't do well at the box office. In fact, it was an absolute flop. I don't even think it earned back a quarter of its production cost. It did, however, in later years when it was released on VHS and then DVD and began to be played on different cable networks and local TV stations airing it in the afternoons and evenings, it actually gained a somewhat of a cult following that it still holds to this day. So if you like crazy, wacky comedy, you probably want to go ahead and check out UHF. If you're a fan of Al Yankovic, you definitely want to check it out. And that's my review for this week. And you all check back with me next week. I'll have another review for you. And until then, you all take care.